Hi, Lisa Schermerhorn here on the Grassroots Warrior Network, and you are on a new show. It's actually my dear friend Michele Lowry's show called Intuitive Guidance from Animals. And Michele and I figured out we've known each other a little over 10 years ago. We studied shamanism together, and she has helped me so much with many issues with my own animals that I've had and my children's pets and friends and given messages. And we're going to talk about some of that in this time. But I want her to really introduce herself. And the concept of this we talked about is really about people getting a deeper understanding of the animal kingdom and what they bring. So Michele, I'd love for you to talk about, what we plan on doing here. And it's going to evolve. So the show in a couple of shows may not look like this. So we're good with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's part of it is allowing it to unfold and that what we're bringing out to people is what needs to come out to people, and that doesn't come from our heads. So I love that concept. Thank you for the introduction, and I just love this collaboration that we're doing. And I know that you've had the experiences you've had with your animals in this work. And so that's really helpful in kind of supporting this new show and getting it off the ground. And it's been trying to birth itself for many years. So this is very, very exciting. Um, so what I have learned in the last 2 decades or so is that our animals really want us to see them in a very different light. They want us to know that they have this innate wisdom, that they witness us and they know us and they want to support us as much as we want to support them. And what I've learned is that we've been taught, like in so many other ways in the Western world, how to interact with our animals, how to nurture them, how to take care of them, and that the vocabulary around it is fascinating to me as I get to know the animal's perspective on things more and more. And so really this comes from a heartfelt place of, oh my gosh, how much we're missing out on in this relationship we're having with these animals, and how much we can embrace what they offer and what they bring as mentors and guides and reflectors. They're absolute mirrors. And I know we've talked about that before. And so the idea of this show is to take it deeper, to really understand the messages that they can bring, not only for their own health and well-being, but for ours, and how they see our lives and how they see us moving forward. And my animals, time and time again, have given me messages that were nothing to do with them. It was purely step into this part of your evolution, or we're going to support you in this part of your evolution. And in fact, what I did before this show, because I really wanted to ask for guidance and support, is my horse Echo, who's right there, who's fabulous.
Beautiful. Oh.
Um, he guided an oracle deck to me that he's been pushing me about getting out there for 2 years now. Um, and so I was so excited about this, but I wanted to be grounded and connected. And so I got the deck out, which, is still in its evolutionary phase. And I pulled a card. And this is not the final product, but it gives you an idea. But this is the card that was pulled from him for me. Your evolution is inevitable. So how does that help me? That helps me in you're ready, you're able, don't second guess yourself. You've been practicing this for a long time, and now it's time to get out there in the world. And my heart opened and my concerns and my anxiety dropped just from picking that card and getting his message. And I know that, we've been working with Lily the last few days, and she came out with the most profound message for you in all of what's going on for her.
Yeah, so Lily is a 60-pound Black Lab American Bulldog Springer mix who I rescued. She was almost 11. She had been terribly abused and was actually on death row at a high kill shelter. And a dear friend of mine, Carol Moore, who runs For the Love of Dogs Vermont, grabbed her. She works with this shelter and brings a lot of dogs up from the south to be rescued. And by the grace of God, I got this dog. And because who wants to adopt a senior 11-year-old dog? And I was like, me. And so she goes everywhere with her lamb chop. And this photo was done by a dear friend of mine, Barry Fisher, who's an incredible dog photographer. And I love this because this personifies her. She doesn't necessarily like her photo being taken. I was going to bring her on and she left the room as soon as we got on. But she's had a couple of situations where she hasn't felt well. One time, actually, I want to talk about before this was several months ago, she suddenly had no use of her legs. She couldn't walk at all. And we didn't know if it was a tick or a spider bite. And we were literally carrying her. She was like a rag doll, and bring her outside and lay her down. And she would pee on the grass that way because she couldn't hold her own weight. And I checked in with Michele and I was like, is this it? You know, is this time? Because it's so hard when you have an animal that we love and we don't want to play God. We want to know their wishes. And she was like, no, this is not the time. And so that reassured me to keep going with her and believe in her. Now, Michele will communicate with the animals and they will tell her what they need. And this is so specific to homeopathic remedies, all kinds of things that they want, herbs, you name it. And so she had recommended to Michele 3 different homeopathic remedies, and I have a huge store. I think I could probably sell my own homeopathic remedy store, and I happen to have those 3. I gave them to her, and within 10 minutes, she was standing up on her own weight with her legs. And this is where we had like this, like a holster of some sort, and literally had to carry her 60-pound weight around. This is how extraordinary the work that Michele does. So Lily, a couple of days ago over the weekend, has something called vestibular disease, and it's something that she has had twice before, so I recognized it. She started to get out of balance and falling over, and sometimes I always wonder, is it just the hindquarters? But the eyes start going back and forth. It's kind of like a Meniere's where you get dizzy and nauseous. Sometimes the dogs will throw up. And my previous dog, Tulip, got that too. So again, I had to go through this period. It takes dogs do recover from this very easily, but it's hard when now Lily is almost 15. She's 2 weeks away from turning 15. And what was incredible was when I reached out to Michele, not only did she have supplements and suggestions of homeopathic remedies, but she also had a message for me. And I don't know if you want to talk to that from the standpoint of, is that common? And, you know, what was it about where she was in need and she had this need to let me know something about where my life was heading?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And you know, you and her could probably write a movie and a book together in what you've learned from each other, because it's a two-way street. Yeah, you know, there's such mirrors for us in so many different ways. And most of the time, again, like what we've learned and what we've been taught in animal care is we give, they receive, we do the best that we can do. We're held fully responsible to make all decisions at all times of their life and, you know, in their death. And we hold that. And there's this unnecessary, in my opinion, responsibility to do it right. And what happens if you do it wrong? And then do you grieve for years because you truly believe you made an incorrect decision, too long, too short, whatever that might be?
Right.
And that's where I started to ask more questions of them. And honestly, this has come from a place of, I don't know and I don't want to know. Because if I know, then I can't ask them what they know. And so what they've taught me, oh, well, what they've taught me is to get out of the way. And what a great lesson for all of us, to not think that we're the race that knows it all, and that we can actually step back, we can get out of the way, and we can invite them to share their wisdom, and that they have wisdom, and whether you believe that they can talk or not. And I get that for some people that's a stretch. I've had many conversations about how I do this and what happens. And I do hear words, I do see pictures, but primarily it's feelings, it's sensitivity, and it's a knowing. So that intuitive piece of us that starts to kick in when we open up to that. And so when we allow for this to be a two-way conversation and not a one-way conversation where we're telling and not asking, that's where we can really develop this conversation that is so incredibly profound, that it can be it has been life-changing, transformative for everybody concerned. And I have found that even when the animals are sick, even when they're in transition, even after they've died, they're still looking out for us, going, and just because we're not here, this is your path, and I'll be right there and I'll support you, and this is how I'm going to show up. But step on your path. Don't hold back because, I'm not physically here. And the more I've opened up to asking questions and being in that place of not knowing, even with the remedies, because you get to know what remedies do what after a while. And so how do you stay out of the way and still allow them to say what remedies they want, which more often than not are not the remedies that I would have gone, oh yeah, they need this. So it truly is an evolution of our soul in remembering these amazing intuitive abilities that we have, that they want to reignite in us and have us embrace, to trust ourselves and not second guess ourselves. And know that that feeling that you get at the vets that says, don't say yes to this, is coming from them ultimately through you as a feeling. And then you make a choice, and it's okay to say no to a vet. That's another big message that I've learned over the years. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say I'll wait. And it's okay that if you take your animal home and they transition, they were going to. And I don't mean that in a very callous way. I just mean that you're honoring their life cycle. So there's many layers to this, and I've learned to come from my heart. So that's a lot of personal work. Come from that voice, that inner voice, a lot more personal work, into a place of allowing. And with you, because you're such a dear friend and I so want to make the right decision for you, that can sometimes be an obstacle, right? So I have to come out of that and go, okay, if Lily was a dog I'd never met before, how would this session how would it work, in order to stay in that place of I don't know, tell me. Right. So that's how this all works. And then the profound messages that always come in every session. Even if someone contacts me because they've got physical issues with their animal, for example, there's always a message, and I let people know how important it is to allow them the space to speak, as well as the space to say what they need. So yeah.
It's so interesting about that, because I'm making a couple notes, because there's a bunch of things that I want to cover just from what you just said. But one of the things that I think is the hardest, at least for me, having had several dogs and cats in my life, is when gets to the end of life, feeling like you're playing God, right? When do you make that decision? Is it too soon, too late? And you helped me go through something with my last dog, Tulip, who was a pug mix, who was hysterical. And this dog got me through a lot in my life. And I came back from a business trip and her breathing was really shallow. And I said to the dog sitter, did you notice that? And she said, yes. And I took her to the vet, and they x-rayed her, and they said, oh, her lungs are completely filled with tumors. You should put her down right now because this is going to be a horrible death and she's going to suffocate to death. And I was like, no, 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 no. I just got back from a trip. I'm taking her home with me. And, you know, that torturous time of having a diagnosis like that. And then what is the right thing to do? Because she would get into these spasms where she couldn't breathe and I would hold her. And then suddenly she would come back again. And so having Michele as my guide, as the really the not even really the guide, you were like the transition, what's the middleman between both to help keep a dialogue because she did not want to go. And I don't know if you remember, because I know you see so many dogs, but it was heartbreaking because she was struggling more and more and more. And Michele actually ended up having to have a conversation with her and tell her that it was time for her to go because she was not. She was convinced that she was healthy.
Yeah, it's yeah, thank you for reminding me. Yeah, when they're that connected to us and they still feel that they have a mission, they will go so above and beyond where their body is ready or not ready to go. And they just have this drive. I love her. She's so fun. And I can just see her right now and she's like, yay. I and I doesn't happen often that you have to kind of say, you know, you might want to think twice about this because your physical body is just not going to make it through where your mind and your soul and your heart want to be. Um, and giving them the option. You know, it's like us when we're stubborn and we're driven and we're just going down that road no matter what, and we're going to keep going regardless of anything that's thrown at us. We're just like, nope, this is what I'm doing. And we forget to stop for a minute and take a breath and take a good look around and see what's going on. I'm kind of in that place myself in my life right now, and going, just stop for a minute and reevaluate and be the observer. Like, come out of the situation far enough that you can really see what's going on and then make a decision, make a choice, do nothing, whatever that might be. And I've always felt, from what I've learned in the transitional phase, is that animals come in and out in chapters of our life. So they come in a chapter where they have a mission and a purpose with us. And then when it's time for them to leave, it's because something's happening in our life where they know they're not part of that forward motion into that next chapter. And so it's time for them to leave. And there's no textbook as to what that looks like.
Right.
That's how I've learned to stay open because I don't know. It's always different.
Right.
And with Lily, you know, you had been through so much together that she was just hanging on. She was like, no, we've got more to do. And this body is just going to have to figure it out.
Oh, that you mean tulip? I know
Tulip, yeah.
two flower names because Lily came to me with named already, but yeah, Tulip was determined. And there was one moment, it was her last day, and she was gasping for air. And I remember begging her to leave. I said, I want to just do this now, just go. And I even get emotional now. And she had stopped breathing for a period of time, and I had this sense of relief, and I thought it was done. And then it was like, I was like, so it's like, how do you know when, when it's too long and when, it's too early? So that was one of the things that you were such a great help, was just giving me peace, knowing that I was doing the right thing. And I know, we have a couple of friend Scott, who we've talked to, who really was struggling with his dog. And he said to me, thank you so much for bringing Michele into my life, because she really helped me with that decision of knowing when it was time.
Yeah, that was such a beautiful journey because from the outside, because his dog's Lily too, right? Yeah.
Yes.
From the outside and from everything that was going on around him with the people around him, it was just put the dog down. She's suffering, she's not happy, just end it. And every time I tapped in and I chatted with him, she's like, no, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And what was going on was that there was something changing. There was something about to birth itself. And she wanted to make sure that he really stepped into it and that he really honored that process, and he could see where he was going. And then her health, declined really rapidly. But we had another conversation because it was still, we have to let go in order for them to let go. And so we had a long phone conversation one day about it. And I was explaining how, they'll get to that point where they don't want to get to the point where we act out of fear. They don't want to get to the point where they've lost dignity. They don't want to get to the point where we're now rushing around and throwing them in the car and taking them to the vet and going, oh my God. They don't want that. They want to be able to transition as best as we can, right? They want to be able to transition either on their own, outside, preferably on the ground. They like to go back to the ground when they're passing. Or they want to go to the vet. So I pose the question to them, do you need assistance?
Yeah.
And the answer to that can change over a period of time. But I always say, do you need assistance? I don't like the word euthanasia. It doesn't feel aligned to what they're asking for. And I know that's what it is, but it's language, and language is really important. So, would you like assistance? And I visualize, the needle and what that means and what's going to happen in that process, because that's another piece that we miss. We don't tell them, oh, you're going to the vet for surgery, and this is what it's going to look like, and this is what's going to happen, and this is how it's going to happen, and this is when you're coming home. We literally just take them. And there's very clearly a part of them that knows exactly what's going on because they're not stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to create the relationship, you want to know, because we know they're going into the vet and they're going to be in a kennel and they're going to have surgery and they're going to come. We know all of those steps if we've asked those questions, which I'm hoping people always do.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't necessarily know. Perfect example of that. I was lucky enough to go behind the scenes at a vet hospital in Portsmouth, an emergency vet hospital in Portsmouth, and I lived there. And, of course, I'm now on high alert, checking in on everybody that's back there going, what do you need? Are you okay? What can I ask for? And, and there was a cat in a kennel and there was nothing in the cage. It was a metal cage. There was no water, no food, no nothing in this cage, no blankets, nothing. And this cat is sitting there. And this cat was like, why am I here? What's going on? And why do I not have anything in this cage? And so I asked my friend that was there, and he asked the vet that was there, and this cat was going through chemo. So because the chemo radiates everything, they could put nothing in there.
Wow.
But nobody tells the cat.
So let me ask you this, because, as we say in psychic development and mediumship, it's like everyone can play the piano. Some people play chopsticks and some people can be a concert, pianist. So my
Yeah.
question to you is, if I don't have you to tell them, is it that I can physically say the words, or is it in my thoughts, or does it matter? How do we communicate with our animals to let them know?
I love that question because, yes, we can all do what I do. And what I tell people is that I've become better at it because I do it all the time. It's anything that you practice, you
Right.
improve. So they can hear words, they do understand words, and they also work off of a visual. So if you have made an arrangement for them to have surgery or dentistry or whatever they might be going to the vet for, whether you're going to be there for them or not, tell them tomorrow around this time, we're getting in the car, we're going to the vet. This is why, this is what's going to happen, and lay it out. And the beauty of that is that you have to ask the vet what's happening in order to lay it out for the animal. You have to know what's going on, I
Right.
feel. Like, don't be in the dark. trust is fine, but don't be in the dark, because the more you know, the more your animal knows, because they'll pick up the vibes from you.
Right.
So you can use images, you can use words. And then what I would invite is, as you're sharing that, notice what you feel back. Do you feel like smooth, okay, this is what I'm doing, and I know I need this, and I'm going to go, and everything's going to be good, and I'm going to come home in the end of the day, or whatever it might be? Or are you getting some kind of anxiety? Are you getting some kind of second guessing? Are you getting some kind of, oh, I didn't ask this question to the vet? That's communication. Because as you're telling them what's happening, they're coming back to you going, could you ask another question about this? Or could you? I've had animals tell me to watch the level of anesthesia. I've had animals tell me that they don't want to go in the busiest part of the vet hospital. They want to go out back where it's more quiet to recover.
Mm.
So there's lots of questions that you would ask if you were going in for surgery, and it's the same for them. And so trust those feelings. And all it takes is a call to the vet if you're not there, and say, I just have a question about this and I have a question about that. And they should answer it. They should be fine, as long as you're not driving them crazy. Ask questions, find out what's going on. And then if you're getting that feeling of, oh, I'm not sure if this is a good idea, question it. Is this necessary now? Do we need to do the surgery now, or is this something that can wait? And then see what that answer feels like, because they may need the surgery, but there may be something else going on that is not resonating with them that you may not even think about.
Right. And I remember there was a situation where Lily was sick. She was vomiting, and they did some x-rays and they saw a mass on her spleen. And the vet was almost positive that it was cancerous. And then we had to go through this whole process. Do we remove it? Do we not remove it? And I decided to make the appointment just in case. So I had the appointment for surgery. And as we were getting closer, she was not doing well, not doing well. And then the whole prospect of cancer, and is this worth it? Is it quality of life? And I got this strong message to take her in. And she threw up that morning, and I decided, all right, I'm going to trust this. And I took her in. They removed that and her spleen, and it was not cancerous, and the spleen was starting to rupture. So if I hadn't taken her in, she would have died. So if I hadn't had that scheduled, it was like the meeting of these two worlds just happened in sync. I mean, the vet was shocked, the timing of all of that. And so I feel like so would you say she was communicating to me, do this. I'm good with that.
Yeah, definitely. Because if they don't want something, they'll suddenly appear to get better.
Hmm.
She would have stopped vomiting, and then you could have said, oh, wait a minute, maybe not. Or that could have been end of life for her.
Mhm.
And that was how she was going to leave, because when a spleen ruptures, I think they pass within 15-20 minutes, because it's a bleed out and it's pretty
Right.
horrendous. And so I feel from that, the vomiting was, no, it is really bad and you need to take me in.
Yeah. No, and so this has been an incredible journey of resilience of what I've seen with this dog. And I know we're featuring a lot of her today, but we just went through this whole experience with her that has been quite profound. And I know in the last interview I did with you, we talked about how you've been connecting with extraterrestrials, is it Pleiadians?
Palladians, yeah.
Pleiadians. And so they've been guiding you on the healing. So, you and I have been staying in touch through this, and Michelle's been checking in to see how Lily was doing. And I'd love for you to talk about what just happened. Was it 2 nights ago?
Yeah, with the healing session with the Palladian. Yeah. So again, the more open you are, there's so much support out there for us that, again, we can just be the vessel. And you know, as things are evolving and these other energies are coming in. So for me, it's the Palladians that I'm working with. And I would invite for a minute, because their energy is just so beautiful, is I'm going to bring them in. And I'm going to invite everyone to feel this really beautiful warmth through your heart. It's absolutely the purest love. It's this warm feeling that comes in through your heart. And then this energy expands out from your heart into the rest of your body. And then it goes from the rest of your body out. And what they keep telling me is there's no bubble. It's limitless. And so it goes out, back, front, up, you know, top, bottom. Every angle of you is now expanded through this beautiful, loving energy. And it just feels so nourishing and just lovely. And so what they've been showing me now is when I do these sessions, is they bring down this triangle and they place the animal inside this triangle, and this triangle is very translucent energy. And I have to get out of my own way because I can be very linear at times. So I'm like, oh, it's a triangle, but it's a very translucent triangle, and they put the animal inside the triangle, and I'm just really the vessel for their work. And then they're bringing in these new energies to help the body to heal and to feel better and to reestablish normalcy and to clear anything that's in there and that's blocked. And I don't remember exactly what Lily's session was, but this triangle, and then what's happening with the triangle is it's including the person.
Right. Well,
So
it was something about an upgrade,
yes,
that her
yes,
body was being upgraded. Now, this is a dog that's 15. So at first I was like, oh, does that mean she's going to pass? Right? Because people can perceive that in any way. And
yeah,
so I was like, oh, does this mean that she's passing? Because it was an upgrade. When you said includes the person, it was for both of us, because her message before we even got to this was, there are big things that are happening in your life. And she had that message, but also there was also, she wanted to show me something about transformation. It was something about, so she knew that she was going to go through an upgrade with this before, a couple days before you were even guided to do it, which is fascinating to me.
yeah. And she's definitely showing, she wants to prove that the body can regenerate itself, which we know it can regenerate itself. There's a lot of proof out there now and science out there that shows how the body can transmute itself and heal. And she really, the lesson was, don't go by age. And the animals tell me that all the time, is that another thing that we've learned is we go by age. Oh, they hit a certain age and now they're old, and they hit
Right.
another age and we're lucky to have them alive. And they're just like, what are you doing? So, you know, this was really amazing in that, just upgrade me and my body will be fine. Um, and again, for me to not go, but you're this age, whatever that is. And so, no, this is, we're just kind of holding space for you at this point. And so many times the animals have said it's age irrelevant. And now with this Palladian energy and all the other energies that are coming onto the planet to give us this new earth, is there to show us that what we've been taught Western medicine wise isn't wholly true. And we've known that for a long time,
Right.
but we've never really applied it to the animals the way we're applying it to ourselves. We're like, oh, we can take this and we can do this and we can meditate. They can too. And so what they're showing is, give them the opportunity to show how their bodies can regenerate. And I think Lily's just standing there, like leading the way, going, age is not a thing. And, you know, let's allow this in and regenerate. And then you did a couple of other kind of program sessions on her also. So
Well, I have her, I'm very lucky to have a cutting edge veterinarian in Burlington, Vermont, who does acupuncture, chiropractic, and Chinese medicine. So she went in and had some work done, and she responds beautifully to acupuncture. And she's a living proof, because I actually had a physician say to me, "Oh, acupuncture is bunk. We did a test and it doesn't mean anything. It's just made up." And I wanted to say, well, tell that to my dog, because my dog literally responds so fast to acupuncture. It's insane. And they literally run the needles down her back, and they'll run them, and she'll have amazing shifts and changes. And then I also use these patches that reverse aging and do healing. And those are pretty amazing. I've been using those with her too. So it's been, you know, a combination, but from a spiritual aspect, you never know when it's an animal's time, right? Because sometimes their bodies get heavy and it's hard for them, and they're lumbering, and it's too much. Because I've had dogs leave much younger too. And I remember I had a boxer, Louis, who was just the sweetest, funniest, goofiest dog. And I had just put down all of the dogs that I had to assist in their leaving. And I remember saying to God, please don't have me go through that again. Just could you let the next dog just go on their own? And then what happens? He has a heart attack right in front of me in 30 seconds and drops dead. I don't want that.
Yeah, be careful what you ask for.
Right. I was like, be careful, because I was like, I didn't get to say goodbye. I was just done. I had no idea. He was 9 years old and healthy. He'd just come in and all of a sudden just had this heart attack and dropped. So it's never, there's never a good time or way. It's always a shock to the system. But the message of her getting the upgrade and working with the Pleiadians was astonishing. And she had a message for me. Now what dog would know what I'm working on, right? In my personal life. And I've felt that I'm in this huge transition, and I've been guided to, I've been activated and trained in a course through the Venus twins in Australia to remove the vaccine, the COVID vaccine, from people energetically. And it's taken a lot for me to be able to, I'm working on putting myself out there that way, because I keep everything in the Rumble channel. And there was a lot of anxiety around that. And at the same time, she had this message that came in, your life is about to change.
And what I loved about that was that there had been like the tinkering of a message, and
Right.
you came back to me and said, can you expand on that further? Because, you know, you obviously you wanted to know more. And so I sat and, you know, it's interesting. The human in me sometimes goes, oh, well, I don't know, right? And then I go, okay, well, that can just go over here. And then I, you know, get back into my heart space and I open up. And then she just, so I do a lot of my work by writing. So I channel write because it somehow gets my head out of the way. And all of a sudden, I'm texting you, and all these words are coming out, and I'm going, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God!" Um, and this message came out, and the messages don't make sense to me necessarily, and I don't have an understanding of them because I'm literally channeling the words and I just write them down. It's not till I go back and
Right.
actually read the message that I realized how profound and transformative they were. And on top of that, so that people kind of get a context of this, I had no idea. I knew you'd done the training, but I
Right.
had no idea where you were in your life and what you were planning when this message came in. So the other piece to this work is your ego has to get out of the way and allow you to simply give the message. You know,
Right.
my work is to be the bridge between a person and the animal, and also to just be the channel. And you know, sometimes I say to people, I'm just the channel, like whatever, because
Right.
sometimes the
Right.
messages, you know, can be hard hitting, and I'm like, I'm just a channel. Like this is not coming from me. This is not personal. Um, but people receive these messages so beautifully because they come from a place of pure love and truth. And so you can't deny a message. You'll feel those words as they come to you being real, and you'll resonate with them. And in that process, you know, you evolve and you elevate, and you know that what you're doing has been seen and noticed and is right.
Right. And so I was going through this process of surrendering and trusting, like, can I really go to the next level with this new training and taking it to where I want to go? And I'm working on some things behind the scenes that I'll know in about another week that I can talk about, but I'm very excited about this. And her message helped me really trust. Like it was just like all the doubt, all the questions, the same thing with you. It was just like, okay, all right, this is going to happen. I'm going to be able to help people on a much larger scale, and I'm very excited about this. And
Yeah,
and part of the message was everything that you've been working towards your entire life is coming right here.
I
And
know.
I sat and I wept. And so here's my question for you, is because we are interdimensional, right? We go in and out. How, are animals psychic?
Yes. I honestly, yes. I mean, like, no doubt that just came right out.
Right.
Um, I learned about the psychic ability of animals with Echo, the horse whose card I showed earlier, because he knew things ahead of time. And down to the simplest thing of being out on a ride with him, and he wouldn't go down a certain path. And
Mhm.
back in the day when I was, you know, just my human self, totally unevolved, and this horse had the patience of a saint to get me where I am. And like, no, come on, we have to go this way. And you push the animal because they're misbehaving, and you forget that they're intuitive, and you're just like, no, because the ego says that if I let you not go down that road, then you're not listening to me, and now you're going to have a bad behavior. It is amazing how we're taught about animals behavior and how they're acting. And I learned the hard way. You know, one of the times he hit ice, and now 4 legs on ice. No fun whatsoever. And we made it through. But I learned that when he stopped, when it was snow on the ground, there was likely ice underneath,
Right.
right? So that's probably more intuitive. But there were other times he wouldn't go down a path. And I honestly believe that there may have been a bear down there.
Right.
There may have been a hunter down there. I don't know. I
Mhm.
don't have that ability, but he does. And so then as we got into the work that we did, and we really evolved into that relationship of writing together and doing all kinds of work together, that's when I realized he had foresight. And
Mhm.
some of the messages from 2017 onwards actually predicted 2020, 2021.
So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So we'd been writing together for many years, and it was always hindsight. So he was Atlantean, so, and lived many lives. And so all of his wisdom came from that time where they were so evolved and they knew stuff.
So just to stop you, when you say he was Atlantean, was he an animal or was he human? And like how does that work from the standpoint of because there are some beliefs where you only move in a certain way, and we as humans are arrogantly believe that we are the highest that you can go, right?
Yeah, we do.
So, and then there's others that say you can bounce back and forth between the animal kingdom and the human kingdom, because my understanding is that animals have a collective soul versus humans have individual souls. But I see individual personalities within each. Like I might have 2 or 3 boxers and they all have similar traits, but their personalities are so different. So I just wanted to ask, I mean, when you said he was a
Yeah.
Palladian, I mean, an Atlantean, in what form? I'm curious.
I do feel that he's always been in the animal kingdom
Okay.
rather than the people kingdom. Yeah, he's like, well, I knew better. To be feminism, totally get that. So thanks, buddy. Um, and so his messages were always from a place of knowing the past and how the earth has cycled in the past, and therefore all the things that were happening, and he would repeat things that if you go on my website and look up Echo's Words of Wisdom, you'll see all of his writings there. And so it was always the past. And then 2017, he channeled a message to me that was a past life that him and I shared 350 years prior, where he was my horse and I was a healer and I did herbals and all kinds of stuff. And then he showed me how I lived outside the village and all these people came and they basically killed me because of what I was doing. And he couldn't get to me because he was in his other paddock and he had to watch. He ended up going somewhere else and died of a broken heart. And that made sense so much when he shared that to me, because when he came to me, he never left my side. He was very protective of me. He was determined to show me who I was, and he wasn't going to let that separation ever happen again, other than him transitioning, which he did in 2019. And so in 2017, he started to go forward. He started to tell me how to take care of myself when the world went upside down. He told me how to heal the water. He told me how to make sure that I was around people that had chickens, so I had eggs and I could eat, and people that were growing their own vegetables, because then I would have a food source, and that electricity was going to go. I mean, he went full on. He showed me devastation. He showed me absolutely the world turning upside down. And clearly he knew he wasn't going to be there for it, right? Because he was saying, you have to protect yourself, you have to take care of this, and you have to know how to be and where to be. And so that was a lot of that psychic stuff. And I believe that the animals see our path moving forward. And so they navigate those messages and they navigate that support based on where they know we're supposed to go. And they're coming along on some level for the ride and just making sure, because Echo always used to like kick me back on track. You know, if I went off a tiny piece, he'd be like, nope, you need to go this way. And I have to share a story. One time I used to volunteer at the Animal Welfare Society at the shelter, working with the animals there. And I went every week. And this one week I went to check in on him at my house, and he had colic, which is a gut issue where they can actually die from colic, but the stomach just kind of ties up and it's very uncomfortable. And he never got sick. And he clearly was colicking. He was sweating. Things were like bad. And I went, oh my God, okay, I'm just gonna not go to the shelter and I'm gonna stay here with you because that's my priority. So I contacted the shelter, canceled, went back out there, and he was fine. The sweating had gone, the pain had gone, and he just stood there and he looked at me. I'm going to cry now. And I said, you didn't want me to get on the road. I don't even know where that came from. And I said, you were stopping me from being on the road. And he said, yes, because you'd have been in an accident. Right? I mean, feeling it to the core, the number of times my animals have saved my life. And am I ever going to know? Right. No, I'm never going to thank you. No, I'm never going to physically experience oh yeah, they were right. Hi, buddy, up in heaven. You told me not to get in the car and I did. So, you know, and I don't take it lightly, but you also have to take a lot of this in the higher energies of, joy and heart. So, but I knew to my core that he just saved my life. So that psychic ability of timing for me being in the car and not wanting me to be in the car. And he knew the only way he could keep me home was that if he showed up sick.
Yeah.
So then you listen and you don't go, no, but I have to go to the shelter. You go, okay, why? Right? That's what they teach us. They teach us to be present enough, to be aware enough of what they're trying to show us, because it's always in our best interest. They don't hold grudges. They don't get mad. They don't get upset. If they are, they're reflecting us. They're pure.
They are. And the astonishing thing is, I look at animals who have come from really horrendous situations. And going back to Lily, I didn't know her background. I didn't know her story. But my understanding, what I did know the little bit of, was she was used as a breeder dog and she was perpetually pregnant. And then she could no longer have puppies. And so what happened was, when they were done with her, they just put her out on the street and they shot her with a BB gun to get her to go. So I didn't know that story. And she needed an x-ray a couple years later, and they x-rayed her, and there's the BB in her hip. Now you would have no, and so you were the one who gave me her story. I had asked you to check in and told me that she had been shot with a BB gun. And yet the way she was treated and what she went through, and when I see the unconditional love of so many shelter animals, I mean, some will get aggressive because they're really scared and they've been through a lot, but most of them have these extraordinary ways of just incredible unconditional love despite everything that they've been through.
Yeah, they really do. I probably learned the most that I ever learned about what I do from the shelter animals, because you have to come in open. It's not about healing them and putting our human, you have to get better so you can be adopted, or you have to change this behavior because then you can get adopted. And, you know, and there's this, it's become a business, right? Most of these shelters started out just wanting to help animals, and now it's a huge business. You know, these animals now run the shelter by being adopted, and, you know, all of the grants that come in and everything. So but what I learned from them was where they were truly at in their life, what had happened. I actually got to work with some dogs that came from the Thailand meat market when they shut that down. Yeah, that was, yeah, I saw some stuff from them that was horrendous. Um, and yet they came through it and they got adopted out, and, you know, they went on to live their lives. But they really taught me how to just be completely open and in my heart and allow their story to emerge, because it was through that that they could heal. It wasn't about just training them, or, you know, or doing certain protocols with them or whatever. It was really inviting them to tell their story. And so once the shelter saw what I was doing and how that helped with the adoptions, they allowed these animals to truly shine and tell their story and what they needed and how they needed it. And if they needed training, what training would actually be beneficial for them once the emotional healing had taken place. So that's where, when you talked about interdimensional, that's where we have to honor their spiritual path, their soul's journey, and that they come into these shelters very broken by humans, and we expect them to then fix and go back out into the human world that was so torturous to them. I mean, that's just my logical mind, let alone the
Absolutely.
words, right?
They don't trust. Yet their innate nature is to love. I have a question for you around this. So you also said before we came in, you said you had messages from a cat that you wanted. I'm curious to talk about that and what this cat had to say to you.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm working with a cat right now. The person that came to me because um, she was really just, she'd been referred to me, and she wanted a session with this cat because this cat was failing pretty quickly. And by the time we kind of interacted on scheduling, the cat, she had taken the cat to the vet. They'd basically got a diagnosis of hospice care, take the cat home. And so I reached back out to her and I said, you know, if you want me to support you through this process, I have something now that's called palliative care, and I can walk you through the process with where they're at, like I've done with you, through every step of the way and beyond. And she wanted that. So we've been doing this palliative care. We did the initial session, and they're going through some pretty major changes in their life, with relationships and their son, and now this cat dynamic is in there. And this cat is there to support them to show up as the true human beings that they know themselves to be and evolve in that. So, you know, now we have the gender and sexuality and all the different things that humans are evolving into and expressing as, right? And so this cat wanted this couple who had separated at this point, but this couple to show up in their truth, to really evolve in who they felt they were in their heart and in their core. And so this cat is actually walking them through this evolving time in their life and helping them to rediscover a relationship that is different to the one they had.
I just got the chills.
Right? I mean, and you know, and they're open, right? And
Yeah.
they're open to this. But it's amazing the messages that are coming through with this cat who in his own health, you know, we're still asking him how he can put food in his mouth because he's not ready to go. And I think part of it is that he's helping them find their peace and find how they're moving forward. And he's, you know, so I'm doing energy work on him and Palladium work on him. And what's beautiful about this care package is that I'm available virtually 24/7 for 3 months. So call me, text me, whatever you need, any sessions. This is walking you through that process. And she's a massage therapist and an energy worker. So there's also that piece of her saying how much lighter she's felt working with her cat and helping him and watching him take the energy from the earth and watching him connect with the vortex and the ley lines that she has out there. And it's all about evolving, and they want to support us and help us evolve. And he literally is not allowing me in to help him until they have done their work. And whatever happens with him, he's okay with. So today I did another session before I came on here to work with him and to do more energy work with him and find out what he needed and bring essence of homeopathic remedies in. And this woman has bought all the things that he has asked for. And it's just this process of her learning not to second guess herself, which is massive, right?
It is massive.
That's what this is about. And that's my thing, is to show people how much depth and also how much light and layers there are to these animals sharing their life with us. And we don't own them.
Right.
You know, they're not our babies. I have a hard time with that. I know some people, I haven't got kids and these are my kids, and I get that, but there's so much more than that, that they can be your kids and still be evolved and teach you and all of that. So I'm really also watching language. You know, is the language demeaning? Is the language supporting them in the immense amazement that they are as beings on this planet? And why have they chosen to walk with you? Like, what is that?
Right.
So, and I've learned most of that from my animals, let alone the clients that I've watched, you know, with their people. But it's just been this amazing process of every animal that crosses my path. And I have to cut the slate clean and go, okay, why are you here and what do you need? And how can I support you?
You know, it's interesting you say that because I remember my son got a puppy, Oscar, who's a French Bulldog, English Bulldog mix. And he was very stubborn, and it took a lot to get him trained, and he was really pushing my son out of his comfort zone. And the dog's still around. And he really, one of the first, I had asked to, you know, a session on, you know, to communicate with him because he was still going to the bathroom in the house, and he was like 4 years old at this point, or 3 years old, and shouldn't be doing it. And his answer is, because I can. And, you know, and then he also went on, and I haven't been able to find the message. But it was something about, he came in, like, these animals have contracts with us, which he came in to teach my son certain lessons about boundaries and how to, you know, use his voice and how to do all of these things. And it was in great detail, was the messaging around what his purpose in my son's life was. And so just as much as we have spiritual guides, right? They are animal guides as they come in, and they, as you mentioned, they mirror to us. They're a reflection of, how many times do they say, our animals look like us? And
Yeah.
I was like, oh God, if I looked like Tulip. And I was like, but it's really interesting how they can project different aspects of us.
They absolutely can. And they do it to show us who they see us to be, because they know who we are and who we can be and who we're evolving into, and helping us to guide that way. And Tulip just makes me laugh. I mean, she's just, if there's a mirror there, I mean, that's the mirror, because you have like this great laugh when you're really in that belly laugh state. But and that is her. I mean, that is, the reflection on some level of her and you together. Um, but they do mirror us. And one of the things that Dasher, one of my dogs, Dasher, taught me is he would reflect my mood. Now, most of the time, right, I'm very kind of, I wouldn't say flatlined, but I'm just mellow, I'm calm, I'm laid back, I'm all about nature and talking to trees and, but I'm also human and things irritate me and I get frustrated and I'm very driven, I'm very stubborn. And, so I know my traits. And he reflected, not only did he reflect my neediness, and he was like, back off. You can learn how to be around me without being on top of me all the time. Like, I need to be able to breathe, woman. Get back. But he also reflected my moodiness, which was fascinating because this was a dog that never left my side, very rarely on a lead. And every once in a while he would go off, and when I'd call him, he'd not come back. And it wasn't like he was gone, you know. And I'd be like, "Come on, Dash, let's go," and he wouldn't come, and I could feel myself getting wound up, right? Dasher, and then all of a sudden it changes into, "Come on, you got to come now. We've got to go out," and all of a sudden this other person appears, and it's all this frustration and anger, and he would not come. And one day I shifted and I said, all right, what if I just stop the anger and I just kind of ground myself for a minute and I call him in? And he came back. And I said, oh, right, because I'm learning to look at me first and not them. And I went, oh, when I'm in that state, that yucky, moody state, why would you want to come back? Right? It's like Echo going, you're not getting on my back to ride. Go shift your attitude and then we'll talk about it. And he was showing me that deep down in here, there was frustration that needed to be expressed, and it would get expressed. And then he'd go, okay, I can come back now because it's out of you.
But that's a very evolved way to look at an animal, right? Because someone who's not evolved would go over and yell at the dog or, the animal, or punish them.
Yeah.
And so there are, this is why it's so important to go inward. And, you taught me so much about communication with animals and better understanding. And Lily has been a huge part of that for me, and to all of my animals that I've checked in with you. And I want other people to know that they're going to have this opportunity to have this too, because Michele is creating this. It's a regular show that's going to be on. If you want messages from your animal, now she does this as sessions, so they're not going to be full out sessions, but you'll get a message. Because if you want to have a session, you can contact her. She's very reasonable, very, very reasonably priced. And what you get is extraordinary information about your animal. But what she's going to do is you can send photos in with a name and a question, and she'll be able to answer that for you. And, there may be times where we have guests on that'll come in and have questions and have deeper dialogue. So make sure that you contact Michele. And if you want to know information, now these are animals that are here or passed on, correct? Now,
Correct.
And now I have a question for you. What if someone, like I had a situation where I had a robin for 2 summers showing up at my window, just pecking at my window. Wasn't an animal that, I cared for but it was on and constantly pecking. And then when the sun went over to the other side and I would be in my living room, he would go over to the other side and peck on the window. So I never knew what their message was, but it was interesting. And then I had a redheaded, a pileated woodpecker who decided to be on my deck. On there's a copper part to the top of one of and would peck and literally sounded like a jackhammer on the copper. And the two of them, between the pecking and that, I'm sure they were trying to give me some kind of message to wake up about something. And the fascinating thing is, for 2 years this went on, and then within 2 weeks of each other, they both flew into my window and died. Both of them broke their necks. It was hard. As much as I couldn't stand the fact that they were doing that, it broke my heart that they both passed that way within 2 weeks of each other. So things in nature can have messages like that too. So would someone be able to ask a question like that?
Yes, absolutely. Nature is giving us messages all the time. And yeah, that's a pretty powerful message right there, to receive it that way. And, it is heartbreaking when things happen in nature with the animals that way. But there's messages in there, and who knows what was going on in their journey,
Right.
that you're like, okay, what was happening for you that needed to
Right.
happen?
A
Because,
horrible divorce.
right, you're gonna break your neck if you don't do something. Are you listening? Are you listening? Are you listening? Okay, we're bringing in the big guns now. We're bringing in the pileated woodpecker
Yeah.
because Robin wasn't cutting it. So yeah, I mean, and that was one of the things I was going to say. We get guided from the seen and the unseen world. So we get guided by the animals that share our lives. We get guided by all of the animals that are out in nature. And we get guided by spirit guides that are animals too. And they can all come in various different ways at various different times in your life, but it's all information. It's all sharing. So that you can be guided. So when you're feeling like, I don't know what to do next, I don't know where to go, I'm confused, life's not working for me, blah, blah, whatever that is, go outside and say, I need something. I need a message. I need guidance. I need inspiration. Don't put it all on yourself because all of the help is out there.
And it's interesting, having studied shamanism and learning about animal guides and power animals, and for those people who are not familiar with that, there's traits that animals carry that bring you messages. Like a rabbit can mean fertility. That doesn't mean you're going to get pregnant, but it can mean creativity, fertility, something's about to happen, something's about to be birthed. And lots of animals, all the animals give you those messages. There's lots of books and information you can Google, or was it Ted Andrews Animal Speaks, or
Yeah.
Stephen Farmer. I love him. He taught me a lot.
Yeah.
And I have his books and his decks of cards. He's brilliant. So do you ever get messages from people's animal spirits as well? Or do you really work more with the animal kingdom itself?
I mean, generally speaking, I work with the planes here. But that's more in a realm if I'm teaching a workshop where we're looking to connect with those other spirit guides or those animal guides. That's when, generally speaking, that's when they'll come in. But one of the really interesting things is if I'm doing a session on an animal for somebody or with somebody, I'm also looking at what's going on outside. So every time I'm looking up, I'm actually looking at nature, like what's happening outside in nature while we're talking, because there's messages there. Some random bird shows up on a branch right outside the window. What was I talking about? What is that message? And to make it super easy for people, if you have an animal that just keeps showing up, or a bird or an insect, if you go online and you just put in a search engine and just put pileated woodpecker spirit medicine or spirit animal or spirit guide, you're going to find there's a bunch of websites that come up
Right.
that will guide you. And I would say you're going to get slightly different messages on every single one. Just go with the one that resonates with you. Just go with the one that you're like, okay, that matches where I'm at in my life or what's going on in my life. So thankfully, with the internet, we have the ability to just go and ask. And then there's your learning curve. And then people end up buying the books because then they have them. And they have pocketbooks. You can actually put a pocketbook in your car. And then when you're not driving, you can look up the animal that you saw, even if it was, dead on the side of the road.
Right.
Go look it up, see what that message was.
Yeah, bear. I live in Vermont. Bear. I've had bears. I've had moose. I've had lots of deer. All kinds of animals that show up. And I have this little red squirrel now. I've got a sliding glass door, and the squirrel hops up on the screen and hangs on and stares at me. It's kind of creepy. It just looks at me through my slider, and I'm like, all right, I gotta look up squirrel now.
So what are you hanging on to?
Exactly.
What are you not gathering? What are
Yeah.
I had a squirrel one time on my deck at my house, and everyone was complaining because the squirrels eat the bird seed, right? And you put out these bird feeders and all the seeds, and all of a sudden the squirrels are like in there and eating. And I had a squirrel on my deck one day, and I looked out, and the squirrel said, "But we have to eat too."
I was just gonna say squirrels need to eat too. Why is it just relegated for the birds?
And that's where we're not open. We're like, yes, but the seed is for the birds, and so we can control nature and only have it for the bird. Like, we're so controlling with everything that we do and everything that we try and create. And it's the animal kingdom's the same. We control our animals, we control the training, we control the food. I mean, we're just in that space. And when you drop the control and you allow everything to work in that ecosystem of harmony, so a squirrel gets a few nuts,
Exactly.
right? And then we're not
Exactly.
stressed out because all the bird seed is going and it's not going where we wanted it to go. Well, nature doesn't play by the same rules as us, which is
Exactly.
fantastic. Thank God.
Exactly. Well, I can't believe how fast this conversation went, and I always learn so much when I talk to you. So again, for the viewers, if you want to get a message from your animal, alive or one that's passed, please message Michele, and we will start loading, getting these up, and every week we'll add more. And at some point, I would love us to be able to live stream and get people's messages, but I don't know how to do that technology. At some point, we
Yes.
might be able to do that. But
Yes.
yeah, please message her, and all this wisdom from the animals. It's very exciting, and I'm really excited to learn more. So thank
Yeah.
you so much
Oh my gosh,
for
thank you.
letting
Yeah.
me be part of this.
Oh, yes, absolutely. This works really well. And I would say a recent picture and one question is what you can send out, and we will work through them in these shows. So
Okay.
I'm thrilled. I'm so thrilled to be able to do this with you.
Okay, so I don't know when Kevin Hoyt with the Grassroots Warrior Network is going to schedule it yet, so I'm going to send this to him and we'll find out, and I'll let you know. And I'm very excited to get this out there and for people to learn more about the animal kingdom. Thank you so much, Michele. This was an extraordinary talk.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.